Welcome to Top of the Line. This is the podcast version of our YouTube show. New episodes every Monday and Friday where we talk about audio and hi-fi related themes.
If you have any requests for a future episode, send us an email, totl@abyssheadphones.com. Okay, so we have another viewer question, and it's a simple one, really. Well, it could probably knowing us, it'll be complicated when we're done. But hi, Abyss. There's a ton of new and used amps out there that people have recommended to me. What are some key things I should look out for when buying an amp, whether new or used? And just have an initial of T. T
Okay.
for T, Mr. T.
So this probably is a good idea to go over like a best practice or just a general guide for headphone amp buyers, because there are new models all the time and there's a lot of changeover in the headphone amp space. Stuff comes and goes, prices change, so it is very difficult to make an absolute recommendation on what to buy. But what's going to work well, that mostly stays constant. So as long as you take a peek at the specs, you could kind of get an impression if it's going to work well.
Oh, what's your favorite amp?
Out of anything?
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
I guess it would be a WA33 Elite.
Yeah, I would go WA33 JPS edition.
Oh,
Yeah, because then I'll throw some baller cables on there, and I'm good with that. Illuminata. That's what I have at home. I love it. It's my favorite.
No, you got to go WA33 Elite JPS.
Oh yeah, I see. That
Yeah,
goes
it's the hybrid.
that goes way up there. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to get the little Elite nameplate that he puts on it with the Elite,
fancy.
Yeah.
It's
but
fancy.
the internal wiring and obviously the KR upgrade tubes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe the Takasukis or whatever.
Yeah, the standard their elites. I don't know if they give you the choice of tubes. I really don't even freaking know.
I don't know.
think of it. I don't know. Typically, the KR tubes only come with ours, as far as I know. But you can order anything you freaking
You could order
want.
whatever you want.
Yeah, if you want the Tox.
You could have both. You could change them out.
Yeah, there you go. And that therein brings in the thing of tube rolling, right?
Yep.
Some people do. I did that on my 33 when they first came out with it. I had a full set of what the hell's the name of it? Taka something. They're Japanese
Yeah,
tubes.
Takasuki.
Yeah, I had a full set of those at first for a while. And then when I got KR, when I was working with KR to develop the KR tube for the WA33, it just was it's got bigger impact, harder impact, where the Tox are a bit more softer and lighter and more delicate and airy. And here you got more power and grunt and force and you still get some of the air, but the trade-off is the Tox are much, a little more lighter in terms of their bass impact, but very airy, very spacious. And the KRs are still spacious, not as much as the Tox, but the bass impact is crazy hard with those speeds. Just quite a difference, especially with the rectifier tube.
So personal preference, really.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the cool thing about tube amps is you can do that. I haven't tried all the available 2A3s, but I used to do the same thing with the old, not old, but they still make the WA5 tube amp too, and it's a 300B design. Same deal. You spend $3,000 on freaking tubes for that thing. So, it gets pricey, but a lot of people like doing that. So that's the beauty of a tube amp. But
Pros and cons there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a general guide, tubes can be complicated. If there's the kind of thing you want to have on all day, every day, tubes do degrade over time. They wear out and they fail, like a light bulb, kind of. So if you put a huge amount of hours on it, you either need to plan on replacing them or move to solid state.
I mean, usually I think they'll run for thousands of hours, but there's no givens.
Yeah.
Right.
It depends.
It depends, yeah.
Depends on the amp design. It depends on the tubes.
Depends on the design and the thermal cycles, the use.
There's a lot going on there that you never know. So be prepared to drop a few $1,000s. It's like tires on a car, right? You got a high performance car. You're going to go through tires in a year, and that's normal driving.
Yeah.
Not like on a track.
Oh, yeah.
We go through tires in a session. So
I just talked to a guy about that today, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, got my car inspected, and he's like, "You're gonna need new tires this summer, but they pass." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah, you've been doing too many quick turns.
Maybe.
Yeah, cornering kills tires, man. Well, on the outside of it,
Okay.
Torque.
We didn't
kills
quite
tires.
get to the general guide that we were supposed to do.
Oh yeah, what are we talking about? Where were we?
Headphone amp requirements and recommendations.
Yes.
Well, the first thing is you need to know what your specific headphone requires in terms
That
of
helps.
power and impedance and such. So, and then I guess the second part is, do you want to go tube or solid state?
Yeah.
Usually you have an idea which way you want to go on that, but
Yeah, and my suggestion is if you just got the headphone or you're just getting it, you don't know, you might want to talk to the people that are selling you the headphone or the manufacturer of the headphone, because they point you in the right direction. Flipping coins and reading forum posts isn't exactly the best way to go.
There's a lot
when you're
of
brand new
amps.
at this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
A lot.
options. Yeah.
But the best start is you want to make sure you get a reasonable amount of power.
oh,
There's really two things to consider with the headphone. The driving characteristics, as we'll call it, are primarily determined by the impedance and the sensitivity. So the impedance being more or less the electrical resistance to flow. The higher it is, the harder it is to jam power through the headphone. So if you have a high impedance, you need more voltage than you do current.
More gain. Yeah.
More gain, you might
Right.
call it. Yeah, but it depends on the amp design.
Right.
Some portable amps won't drive high impedance headphones because they just don't have enough
They don't have
voltage.
voltage. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes you'll see this. You'll see a voltage requirement or voltage output of an amplifier, and they'll tell you some are really low, like 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volts. Others like 100.
You're gonna have more. You might have more of an issue with a portable device.
Right.
On high impedance headphones, they just don't. They're running off a battery. They don't have the voltage. Most of them.
some do.
There are exceptions.
Yeah, some do.
The Phi Diablo just came out, and
Isn't it like 11 or
it
12 volts or
steps
something?
up the voltage, like plus or minus 15 or some really high.
Is it 15?
I think so. Yeah, it's really high.
But both matter. Because if you have voltage but you don't have power, well, you still can't drive demanding headphones.
Right.
Below that, power is typically your primary concern. You don't need to worry that much about voltage. Most headphones are in the 30 to 60 range. A lot of times, those are more or less considered traditional impedance headphones.
Well, with some hard to drive headphones like our 1266, and I think the Sesvara is like known to be like that, and a few others. There's a number, mostly planers, I think, are the ones that have the high end planers, the ones that are hard to drive. You need power and voltage.
Yeah.
You need an amp.
Yeah.
You need both.
Yes.
You can't get away with one or the other. You can get away with one or the other.
You can.
But
It's not optimal.
yeah,
though.
you're not really driving a headphone to its
Yeah.
full capabilities.
So the other factor with headphones that's typically discussed is the efficiency. And typically, anything under around 90 something dB per milliwatt is considered to be low efficiency.
By the way, I just thought of something. We should say that we are discussing what they consider to be dynamic drivers or planar drivers, where not electrostats, which are
No,
high
that's
voltage.
a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's a specialized amplifier. We're not discussing that.
Right.
So we are discussing things that are more dynamic, driven in nature, not electrostatic.
There's a few specialties out
No.
there, like any of the ribbon headphones or planar magnetic.
Yeah, that's right. That one ribbon
electrostatics.
needs like a few hundred watts of amplification power.
Those are very
It
different.
basically needs a big speaker amp. It has a transformer.
Yeah.
You'll go between it. It's a completely different freaking design.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
But
people
that's
that
pretty
people
clear.
that get that are going to be.
Yeah.
They're going to.
Yeah.
If they don't know it, they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they go to hook that up.
Yeah, you don't plug that into a 1 watt headphone. amp.
Yeah, it's not going to cut it. Yeah, you won't hear a damn
Right.
thing. So
But
anyway,
generally, you don't need to worry about these
so we're-
things.
We're talking about a majority of headphones.
The vast majority.
Yeah, not the outliers
Yep.
or the different electrostatic designs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could talk about that, but we don't make them. So
Maybe your future episode.
yeah, maybe.
Well, with electrostatics, the real redeeming quality there is the amplifiers are made around a limited number of headphones. They're all kind of more or less similar enough that for the most part, you don't see quite the range you do with dynamics and planar magnetics. Planar magnetics, you could have high impedance, low efficiency, high impedance, high efficiency, low impedance, high, and low impedance, low efficiency. It's just, you have the full range.
Quite the mixed bag.
Yeah.
Like you could get anything. You get something that's crazy easy to drive. You could drive with a toothbrush. Something that needs 400 watt monoblocks or something.
We
to
do
drive
have
it.
we do have a solution. You get one of these babies and it'll drive anything, just
Well-
about anything, except for
For the most part, yeah.
except for 200 watt.
It's not crazy powerful, but it's
But
it's powerful
like the
enough.
Formula S is made for our 1266, which is one of the least efficient low impedance headphone planers out there, right? I mean, and then the WA33 we talked about, that's
got a lot more power.
That thing's got that's a big tube amp, and it'll play to ear splitting levels.
Yes, it will.
It's
on
got
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because it's got a switch for high impedance, low impedance out, so you can tailor it for the load, high gain, low gain. So So yeah. Anyway, bottom line is when you get to the level when you start looking at the multi-thousand, and up range of amplifiers, most of them are pretty much. There are some exceptions, but most of them are made to drive pretty much anything.
Right.
But there are some exceptions. Like we've seen some manufacturer amps that go for a few grand that only drive their own headphone.
Yeah.
They have a high output impedance or something. They're useless when you plug in a low impedance headphone. And it's kind of weird why you would do that, but you're doing it to make it for your headphone. It's not, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be marketed like that. So it's kind of confusing because we get that all the time where people ask me, well, they've got the headphone, right, made for something else, made by another company. And they're like, will this work with your headphone? And I got to tell them no. I wish I could tell them, yeah, no problem. You're all set to go. Then they're like, shit, I got to sell this thing. I got to get another amp. It's a barrier to trying other headphones.
Yes.
So it kind of sucks in that respect. So you might want to check when you are getting a headphone, you're spending the kilobuck range. You just might want to ask somebody or look into what the specs are on it to see if it is more of a universal design where it can drive other headphones, assuming you're going to get other headphones at some point in the future.
Well, yeah.
Typically, one of the biggest factors people talk about when they're looking at an amp is power. You always see it brought up. People always seem to think that more power is more better. And that might be the case. You might want a lot of power, but if you have a high sensitivity headphone that doesn't need a lot of power, having 10 million watts really doesn't matter. It doesn't help, provides you no value.
Well, it actually could be worse.
Could be.
Well, you run into the, this is the volume
Yeah,
range
you're
you
barely
got.
cracking the volume.
Yeah, really? You're at the bottom of the volume control?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, bottom line is because you have too much gain, too much power for the headphone, right? That particular headphone, which would be a high sensitivity headphone. Doesn't require that much power, and here you got a monster amp. So that would be that would be a negative to having a big amp if you have a known headphone that requires very little power to drive. Like there's IEMs out there too, which we didn't even cover, in-ears, which require very little power to fill your ear canal with sound.
Yeah, milliwatts. You're done.
Trivial amounts of power.
Yeah.
And so you could drive those with almost anything.
Yeah, they're easy.
Yeah, noise floor becomes a big problem then.
Right.
Now.
So now noise is an issue more than the power of the amp. And unfortunately, the more powerful an amp, the more they tend to generate noise because there's more gain there. There's more electronics there. So you got to be careful with. That's another thing to think about is how efficient is your, and I mean some of these I guess are approaching the numbers are measured in dB for efficiency. So typically, anything around 90 dB is inefficient, very inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
You get to around the 100 dB range, and now you're getting pretty average. Pretty much doesn't require a ton of power at 100 or so dB. And some of the IEMs have reached 115 or up, which is that you don't need barely anything for that efficiency. Now that's not to say you don't need a good amp for it.
But it's just power isn't a big factor.
Right.
So that is a troubling one because for some reason people always think you need a huge amplifier to drive a lot of loads, and that's not the case. Plenty really don't need super powerful amps. I would say power matters, but not as much as a lot of people think. A lot of other attributes matter more.
Yeah, and I guess it's because we make planers that happen to be very low efficiency. We're in the 90 dB or under range, and we're a low impedance. Both of those factors mean low impedance, low efficiency, high power.
Yes.
And then vice versa. I guess that's the easy way to look at it, right? High efficiency is lower power needs.
Yep.
So it's kind of the inverse. Efficiency and amount of power you need are the inverse of each other when it comes to amplifiers.
Now, some amps get around this by having a switch or something,
For gain,
but that doesn't mean it's not going to necessarily be quiet on the lower.
Like the Formula S has a low and high gain switch.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's switching
pretty
between,
common.
but I think it changes about 5 or 6 dB.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't remember the spec, but even then, it's still, even at low gain, it's still a big amp. Has a huge power supply.
If you were driving an IEM or something very, very sensitive, this wouldn't be the amp.
Yeah.
And that's the case for a lot of stuff that works well for low efficiency planar magnetics. It just doesn't work well for IEMs. So if you want one thing that'll drive a wide range, it's tough. You kind of need something in the middle. Maybe it won't be the best at driving the low efficiency loads, but it probably won't be the best at driving the high sensitivity.
Well, remember Alex Cavalli, right? A long time ago, I think I've quoted this once in a review where he says, he's like, Joe, you know how hard it is to make an amplifier that'll drive a load between 16 ohms and 300 ohms? I'm like, no, Alex, how hard is it? Because I mean, I don't know.
Apparently pretty hard.
Yeah, he's obviously it's for amp designers. They know very well to recover that kind of range of impedance and efficiencies is not really something that one design can do.
Well, and cover it well. That's
right.
the thing.
It can't do it. So basically, then all that means is if you're going to play with all these different headphones and IEMs, you're going to need a lot of amps. That's all.
Well, that's one way around it. Yeah.
2 or 3, I'd say.
2 or 3 is kind of the number if you want a million different headphones and IEMs.
Don't even bother trying to find one that's going to do it all. It's not going to work because you're going to trade off somewhere. You have to. It's the way it works.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
You could get an amp that'll drive most planar magnetics, maybe most dynamics, maybe most IEMs, but when you change driver types, a lot of times the characteristics that follow them mean they have very different requirements for an amplifier.
It's confusing as hell.
It unfortunately is.
And we suggest you look at, at least speak to the people you're purchasing the headphone from and see what they like to use with it, or what's good with it. That's the best place to start. At least get it narrowed down. You don't want to come in. Well, I see this all the time. People get really confused because they're coming in like they don't even know where to begin. They're like, okay, I saw your amp recommendation. We did a tier list. In fact, we should probably post that video. Will be a link to be posted underneath this one. We did a tier list, and we did narrow down, at least for our world, our headphones, how each of these amps we talked about sounded, which was kind of cool for people. But I get the question all the time where people, even given that list, which might only have 8 or 10 pieces in it, people are still confused because now, okay, they said all this about all these amps. I still don't know what to get. I just don't know what to get. And I get that you're spending a lot of money and you don't want to make them a mistake. So you really got to contact somebody at that point. There's no way to narrow it down in a video, obviously, because we've tried that.
It depends on your exact situation. Depends on where you want to use it, how you want to use it, what you want to use it with.
Yeah, and looking forward too. What do you plan on doing in the future? If
Are you
anything?
never going to change your headphones?
Sure.
Or do you want to get headphones in all the time?
Yeah.
You want to bring it with you.
Yeah, if you just want to optimize a system for this one headphone,
yeah,
no problem. Like you can narrow that down right away.
That's easy. Yeah.
But as soon as you introduce multiple variables, no one can. It's confusing for anybody. It doesn't matter who you ask.
It is very
so
difficult.
it's
There's a
difficult.
lot of things to take into consideration.
Yeah. So the best bet, I think, at this level is concentrate more on what sound you're trying to go after. What headphone do you think you're going to want? Then optimize a system around that. It's kind of like 2-channel and speakers.
Well, same thing. Yeah.
Nobody really optimizes a system around 3 or 4 pairs of speakers. It's usually one.
Not.
It's usually one pair because it's hard to do, and it's just as hard, if not worse, with headphones because there's just too many different headphones. So anyway, I think that's about as good as we could cover it in a video. I think.
Otherwise, it would be like 3 hours.
Yeah,
it's a 3-hour-long video if you want to cover everything.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, because we would need to draw a lot of lines between amps and headphones and crisscross.
Oh, one of those boards with the strings. And
right. Yeah, and it would be string art in the end. It would be still meaningless to look at. So,
but generally speaking, out in the real world, people are limited by the choices they have available in the price range they have available. So if you're buying $100 headphones, you're probably in that same range of amps. You're not buying $10,000 amps. You're not buying $2 amps.
Sure, for the most part.
For the most part, you're going to spend $50, $100 if you're buying $100 headphones,
if that.
probably. Yeah. So that kind of limits your choices already. And you kind of need to look in that vein. You need to figure out what other people are using, what makes sense, what other people recommend. That's a decent start. You could contact the manufacturers, have a chat. That usually works pretty well, but unfortunately, they're typically going to sell you something either they sell or they make.
Sure.
Which
so you need
to take that into account.
Thing.
Not necessarily bad, but you need to take
if
into account.
If they're smart, they're going to sell what works with their stuff.
The headphone manufacturers want to sell you something that works well. Right. The amp manufacturers want to sell you what they make.
As do most dealers. Yeah. I mean, the dealers that do headphones, that's kind of what they do. They're already going to know what is most popular given a headphone. It isn't necessarily the best thing you could buy, but it's what they sell that's most popular given a headphone.
Yes.
They're pretty smart. They know about it because technically speaking, a lot of the companies, they have a 30-day trial or whatever, so they don't want to see stuff come back. So it's in their best interest to try to get you into exactly what you need at the first run, first go around. So That's where you want to start. Is if you're not unsure, ask. And that goes for connecting all these things too. You know, we didn't even cover the options like balanced and RCA inputs.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple different outputs. You've got
Yeah, that's a
quarter
whole
inch, you got
nother video.
3.5 millimeter, you got dual 3-pin, you got 4-pin balance. So yeah, you got a plethora of connections too that you got to deal with.
Especially if you have multiple headphones with different connectors and
Yeah.
you want to use one amp with them. And
So it is very confusing. I
Yeah.
get that, you know,
Right.
and it's tough. So unfortunately, it's beyond the scope of a single video to be able to cover this. But you narrow it. See, I remember back in the day when I used to work for a living, right? I used to put in, I was working in a school one time, and a high school, let's call it, all right? And I had to install, they have speakers in every room, hundreds and hundreds of wires coming into the main office, going to a rack full of gear, right? So the principal could go in the morning and go, "Hi, students, how you doing?" and play the national anthem, whatever the hell they do in the morning, right?
morning
Yeah.
announcements.
So anyway, so I would have, my job was to go in there and pull out this 1960s vintage freaking rack full of gear that doesn't work anymore, where it's every time the principal gets on the PA, right, and replace it with all brand new stuff. And the easiest way to do this was, because nothing was really labeled properly, it was all like just you're talking 25 pair of cables coming in, hundreds of wires. You take the wire cutters, you cut all the goddamn wires right off. That's it. Just start from scratch. And they're all luckily twisted pair. So you know 2 of them go somewhere. All right, you just got to figure out. And that's the ticket, right? So I remember pulling the whole rag out. You got all these wires in there, and people would work in the office go, "How the hell do you know what those wires are?" And I'm like, 2 at a time. I just do them 2 at a time. You go to 2 wires. You hook up the system, you listen to it, you make a frigged system, you listen to it. If you hear audio, those lines are active. There's a speaker at the other end. Then you talk on it. You go, "Hi, what room is this?" The teacher would answer, "Room so-and-so." Okay, now I know what this room is. You connect those wires to a switch that's marked that room. And bottom line is, you do it 2 wires at a time until you have the entire school mapped out in front of you, and then you just hook it up. So
this applies to headphones?
that's kind of the way it is here.
Oh.
You start with the headphone.
Got to start somewhere.
And then you start looking at amplifiers. Now you figure out what cable connector you need to connect the headphone to the amplifier.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. It gets less complicated when you look at it one step at a time.
That's true.
Rather than the whole big picture just absorbed
is
at
easier,
once.
yeah.
You can't do it.
Usually people have an idea of what headphone they want, what headphone they have, what headphones they like. And so usually you got a decent idea what you need to drive with your amp, and it really narrows it down. If you're driving IEMs, totally different requirements from
Yeah.
planar magnetics. And there's only a handful of stuff that drives each or the other really well. So it's, and like a broad scale, it's confusing. There's a million different amps. But when you narrow it down to the price range you're in and what you want to drive, there's only a few. So, I don't know, I guess figure one category out and work down to the next.
One step at a time.
One
Yeah.
step at a time.
Something like that.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. And then it actually will fall into place. It's way simpler than you think.
It can be.
Yeah, well, or you can make it as complicated
make
too
it
as
as
you want.
complicated
I've seen
Sure.
people
as you
make
want.
it complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's okay too. Just expect to spend a little more money if it gets
A
complicated.
little money, a little
Time.
time.
And a little more time, yeah. But in the end, it'll probably turn out, And if it don't, you could always get a different amp.
It's always an option.
Always,
Yeah.
it's always that. It's not the end of the world. Same with the headphone. You can always get a different headphone too to fit the amp you just bought, so it could go
Yeah.
either way.
That's an option too.
Yeah, there you go. So it's not the end of the world. Anyway, everybody, we appreciate you watching, and please give us a thumbs up. We could use a few more subscribers here and there, so by all means, subscribe to us so you know what's coming next. And beyond that, take care of yourselves. Thanks.